I was 16 years old, and I had just gotten my driver's license. And I was all ready to go out on the town and explore my new freedom. I pulled out of the driveway, and I picked up some friends, and we went out, and we had a great time. And I dropped everyone off at the end of the evening, and I headed home. But I was sleepy. And the next thing I know, I was in a ditch. And for a second, I had no idea how I got there. I'd fallen asleep at the wheel. Scared, I ran full speed for help. And help came from my parents. It was right down the street from my house. I burst into the house and I told my parents what had happened. And my father said the only thing that a very loving parent could say to their child at a point like that. I said, I wrecked the car. I fell asleep at the wheel. And my father, he looked at me and he said, boy, you are something else. I should have never let you drive. Give me the keys now. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and guests, once again, I am honored and grateful to have this opportunity to speak with you. My message this evening is a simple one. Do not fall asleep at the wheel. About a year ago, I was studying a book, and something in this book quickened me, woke me up. And I realized in that moment that in life, I'd fallen asleep at the wheel. You see, I was in a ditch. And I had no idea how I got there. Now, there's a lot of ways to be able to know if you've ever fallen asleep at the wheel. And that's one of them. When you arrive at a certain point and you realize that not only do I not want to be here, but I have no idea how I got here. Have you ever experienced anything like that in your life? In any area of your life? A marriage, a relationship? Maybe you wake up next to your spouse one morning and you look at them and you realize that y'all are thrown apart.
Sleeping with them.
Y'all are total strangers, and all you can do is scratch your head and say, how in the world did we get here?
Are you married?
You may have been asleep at the wheel. You look at your finances one day, and you're 30 years old, you're 50 years old, you're 70 years old, and your finances are in shambles. And you have no idea how it happened. All you can do is say, how did I end up here? You may have been asleep at the wheel. You go to play with your children one day, and 2 minutes into playtime, you're out of breath. And you're wondering what happened. I used to be an athlete. How did I get to this point? You may have been asleep at the wheel. The thing about being asleep at the wheel is you will crash. Guaranteed. If you don't exert control over your life, it will run you into a ditch. Have you ever known someone that didn't want to exert control over their life? That refused to take control? That found it easier to blame and complain rather than change? Have you ever known anyone like that? They were asleep at the wheel. Now, if you've never known anyone like that, and you've never met anyone like that, then you may be the one that likes to complain and blame all the time. You gotta watch out for that one. Another thing about being asleep at the wheel is the longer you're asleep, the more dangerous it becomes. If you've ever just dozed off behind the wheel, just for a second or two, you know that's dangerous. But not nearly as dangerous as falling asleep for a minute or two. That's potentially fatal. The longer you're asleep at the wheel, the more dangerous it becomes. And the more likely it is for you to end up in a ditch. Now, the good thing about realizing that you were asleep at the wheel is that now you're awake. When you realize, oh, I've been asleep all this time, that means you're awake. And when you're truly awake, you will know, because you won't go back to sleep again. You won't doze off 5 or 10 minutes further up the road. When you're truly awake, you will know, because you'll instinctively steer your life away from the ditch. When you're truly awake, you will know, because if you're already in a ditch, you'll run full speed for help. When you're truly awake, you will know, because you won't have to ask the question, how did I end up here? When you're truly awake, you'll know how you ended up there. You'll know how you ended up where you don't want to be. And when you identify how you ended up where you don't want to be, how you ended up in a ditch, you learn how not to end up in a ditch again. Now, I know that it takes a lot more effort and energy to stay awake and on the road than it does to just fall asleep at the wheel of life. I know that. But I also know that when you're awake and on the road, the path, the journey is a lot smoother. If I could leave you with one jewel this evening, it would be staying awake and on the road does not guarantee that you will reach your destination. There's more to it than that. But you're guaranteed not to reach your destination when you're asleep at the wheel. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters.